We need Kong. The world needs him. The world needs Kong. We need Kong.
Hey guys, it's the Pink King here, and well, there's no beating around the bush today. What the hell happened to Godzilla? More specifically, Legendary's Godzilla. It seems like ever since 2019's King of the Monsters, Legendary's Godzilla has now taken a back seat in the universe it created, with the character being given less and less screen time within shows and movies, and yet is still slapped on every poster, trailer, and snippet. Now, to a lot of you, this may seem like nothing, but to me, this is a very interesting topic, and it seems like Godzilla is being taken advantage of by Legendary. And now, that's started to become a bit more obvious than ever. But what do I mean? Well, allow me to explain, but first, let me just make one thing clear from the very start, before we even begin. I'm not mad at Kong, nor am I a Kong hater. I love Kong. I think him getting attention is a good thing, and it's understandable. He's a kaiju who could easily portray emotion and character, and is much more than other kaijus. So before you go spamming in the comments saying I'm just a crying Goji fanboy, take a second to hear me out here, because by the end of this video, you should be able to see how and maybe even why Godzilla is being mistreated, and more specifically, why Kong is replacing Godzilla. But before we begin, I just want to say, if you enjoy Godzilla content and you want more videos just like this, then subscribe right now. If you don't subscribe, then that's just rude, honestly. Honestly, how could you not subscribe? You, right there, you, subscribe. You subscribe? Good. Let's get on to the video. Now, why am I making this video? Well, a few weeks ago, it was announced that Kong was getting another game. More specifically, Legendary's Kong, with Kong Survival Instinct, a game that admittedly looks not great and not well thought out, but it was this game that got me thinking. We've been getting a lot of Kong recently, a little too much of our favourite 8th wonder of the world, as the past two movies in the Monsterverse have mainly centered around Kong. The comics have started to become more Kong-centric, and even the Monarch show seems to be teasing more of Kong for its next season. But in comparison, Godzilla has become much more held back recently. He had a few seconds more in GVK compared to King of the Monsters, but most of that time was set up or revolving around Kong. And then in GXK, he had his shortest time on screen ever, with only 8 minutes of screen time in comparison to Kong, who had a majority of the movie all to himself. Then you have 5 minutes of screen time in the Monarch show. Now, I wouldn't be mad at this. After all, it's called Monarch, it's not about Godzilla, but the issue I take here is the fact that it's called Monarch, but if you take one look at the marketing, they're throwing Godzilla everywhere. Godzilla's on front and center in the posters, the trailers, and for a casual viewer, that's easy to mistake it. It's easy to mistake the show for something it's not. But what's my point here? Well, my point here is that Godzilla's likeness and name are constantly being used, but the character himself isn't. And it was the announcement of this game that made me realize this. But why? Why would Legendary do this? Well, I have a few ideas. I think it started with King of the Monsters, and more specifically, that movie underperforming. With Legendary taking a look at that movie's box office and seeing the Godzilla lore it brought back from the older movies as well as the characters, and seeing that as the reason it failed to meet expectations. Which is unfortunate because King of the Monsters didn't fail because of Godzilla. It underperformed because it was released 1 month after the biggest movie of the year in Endgame, and was sandwiched in between so many other blockbusters of 2019. 2019 was the year of blockbusters, man. It was crazy. But ultimately, for them, holding back more on Godzilla just makes more sense to them. And my other theory is Godzilla's right. It's no secret that there was a lot of doubt of whether Godzilla would even return to the Monsterverse after GVK because of his rights. After all, they were planning the next movie to be another Kong movie because they were unsure about the Godzilla's rights. Until last minute, they were able to get the green light from Toho that they could use Godzilla, and then later on in the production, they got the green light to use Mothra. So my theory is that Legendary are trying to minimize Godzilla as much as possible in order to phase him out of the Monsterverse. Now, when I first say that, it sounds ridiculous, but then you remember Toho's strict licensing agreements, and the unknown of whether they'll be able to pull out of the project last minute and cancelling the whole thing and wasting all that work, all for nothing. So you can start to see why now they think like this, because with Kong, his rights are no longer as big of an issue as Godzilla. So business-wise, it makes more sense to rely on the ape than the lizard, because the ape is reliable not only in rights but box office also. But this is where I feel the biggest danger comes in for the Monsterverse, because if I'm correct, and Legendary are trying to replace Godzilla with Kong, then I worry what will happen to Kong, and mainly how will this affect his character. Now, I'm going to be honest here, I like Kong in these movies, he's a lot of fun, but I'm starting to get a little tired of him. He's been the center point of 3 movies, several comics, and now even a video game with another GXK movie on the way. And it's this that makes me worry that Kong is becoming overused. That magic of Kong has started to fizzle out because he's being used time and time after again with very little justification. We don't seem to be getting any more stabs at other kaijus. Like with Godzilla, the appeal is completely the opposite to Kong. Where Kong is a kaiju we understand, Godzilla works because we can't understand him. He's not as expressive or complex, but he definitely can be if they were to focus on him more like they do with Kong. We live in a world where we can make anything we want, but we can't make a big lizard be on screen for more than 15 minutes apparently. Like, come on! But back to my point, if I'm right, and they're trying to replace Goji, then it simply won't work. Because the reason why Godzilla 2014 and Kong Skull Island was such a good match for each other was because they were so different. Godzilla brought the perspective of showing these kaijus as forces of nature and true monsters, bringing a good balance of fear and hope. Kong Skull Island, on the other hand, brought a different perspective, showing these kaijus can have more to them beyond the instinct, and maybe one day we'll be able to talk to them and communicate with them. It was 2 completely different perspectives that worked perfectly together and complemented each other so well. It built upon each other instead of being separated. But if you take one of them out of the equation, then you're just stuck with one perspective, and that gets old very fast. You want proof? Well, the proof is with their competitors, the MCU. Not all of their movies were the same. Most of them brought a completely different tone, themes, and adventures, so each one felt different and worth seeing. But now, most of them seem to follow the same formula, themes, villains, look, and even story now. And already that's proven to get old really quick with their box office slowly dribbling away. Now, I know the Monsterverse isn't the best set of movies in the world. They have a lot of issues, I'm not ashamed to admit that. But none of them are bad in my opinion. None of these movies are awful, and in fact, I have a lot of fun with each, because all of them have cool ideas. But recently, we've been getting more of the same thing as of late, with the same big ape, so I'm not here to say Kong shouldn't have his own stuff at all. But more of, the ape needs a break. I want to be excited for King Kong again, and not like waiting and expecting him to show up, like it's some sort of checklist. After all, in the MCU, not every hero is in all the movies, because if that was true, it would get stale and boring. And the same applies here. I like Kong, but I think he needs a break so we can develop other kaijus more. Hell, they don't even have to be Godzilla. Brings back some of the older kaijus like Megalon or Gigan. They'd work really well in the Monsterverse. Or hell, maybe make some of your own. You've already proven you can make your own with Shimo and Scar King. They were really fun, and maybe you should try that some more. Try to have fun with what you've got instead of ruining the best thing you have. But what do you guys think? This is just my 2 cents on this. I want to know what you guys think. Type it in the comments right now. What do you think of this matter? And do you have anything you disagree with me on? I'm very interested in hearing what you guys have to say, and we can even talk about it in the comments, because I read all of your comments. Also, as I said before, if you enjoyed this video and you want more videos like this, then like and subscribe. Doing that makes videos like this possible, so if you want more videos just like this, then like and subscribe. And with that, I will see you all next time.